Chapter 7 of the Innovator's Dilemma, the question how to organize yourself around a new disruptive technology when the market is not knowable by definition, how to organize yourself, how to plan, how to set up resources, how to allocate managers resources. How can a company enter a disruptive market when by definition they don't know what the market is or is going to be? The answer is build around learning, not planning. This is the key answer. We'll discuss Tesla, we'll discuss Twist, two of our most disruptive companies in the portfolio. And then maybe if we have some time, we'll discuss some other examples such as Palantir, Snowflake, and some of the other disruptors right now in the market. This is the Not Even Wrong podcast. It's November 27, 2020. This is Krim Delco. For the day, the fund is up 12.8%. The market's up 20 basis points. For the year, we're up 313%. The market's up 12.5%. We're outperforming by 301.5%. If you put $100 in Orange Capital Partners on January 1st, 2020, you would have $413. And if you did the same with the S&P 500, you would have $112.5. This is roughly what that means. So let's get right into it. Chapter 7 of the Innovator's Dilemma is trying to answer the key question: how do we organize around a new technology and around a new disruptive technology when by definition a disruptive technology does not give us clues about what the market is going to be or how the market is going to evolve? In order to get there, let's go back to the first 6 chapters and work ourselves through to this question. So in the first 4 chapters, Christensen explains what disruptive innovation actually is. It's a new technology that allows certain things to be done that are different than the existing market. For example, Honda developed a bike and a motorcycle that had certain interesting aspects. For example, it was light, it was low cost, it did very well at short distances, it could have a lot of power in a very short amount of time. What it could not do is ride on long roads along the United States highways. That was not something Honda was building for. Now, in those days, in the 50s and 60s, Harley Davidson and others, BMW, for example, they had motorcycles built for exactly that. So the new disruptive technology had certain parameters that were not needed in the existing market. The problem for the disruptive innovation is you don't know what to actually use it for. There is a potential use, but you don't know. In chapter 5 and 6, Christensen goes further and says, well, why are incumbents, this is particularly chapter 5, why are the incumbents not reacting to this new disruptive technology? Why don't they just integrate it and build a new market around it? And the problem that Christensen points out is that the people in those incumbents, they work towards higher profits, higher margins, higher returns on investments. And those are typically in the existing markets where sustaining innovation is the name of the game. So for example, in the motorcycle example, Harley Davidson salespeople, dealers, they want to sell more powerful engines with better looking, extreme designs and all that, because that's where they get the margin. They're not going to get the margin from these little new types of motorcycles that have certain characteristics that are not even wanted in the big, on the big road. So this is kind of the setup where we are right now. And Christensen points out in chapter 6 that the way to deal with this problem is to set up a separate organization that is fit to size, so that has the potential to harness the new type of technology and build an innovation stack. He's not using that word, but now in hindsight, after Jim McKelvey's book came out, we know what he means. To build an innovation stack around the new disruptive technology, you have to build from scratch. You have to start with the technology and build around the new technology, build a sales force, a sales channel, acquire new customers. And here is now where chapter 7 kicks in. Chapter 7 kicks in at the point where we're now building an organization, building an innovation stack that is built for learning. This is the key. Again, Jim McKelvey is using Christensen's arguments and just putting them into the words of an entrepreneur who's actually done it. So what Christensen is saying is you need to build an organization around learning. Now, what does that really mean? McKelvey has the answer. He says, look, start solving the problems that this new technology has to offer. McKelvey is saying innovation is a necessity, not a choice, which means you have the necessity to innovate, to learn. The customers, they want to do certain things. You have to learn how to solve those problems, create new problems, better problems. You don't solve problems by creating even worse problems. Create new problems which are better problems. So for example, in the Honda example, what happened is that they started making off-road bikes. That was a small market, but they started growing with that customer base. They started making better off-road bikes that had more power, that could go more uphill, that had less issues with dirt. Then they started moving from the off-road into off and on-road bikes. So there was a flexibility and the people could go off-road and on-road. And then finally, they started sustaining themselves into the actual market on the road and started threatening Harley-Davidson. And I think even today, Harley-Davidson is still on the threat. They kept their niche market for those, easy rider type people. But in the end, Harley-Davidson is a disrupted company because Honda and others, followers, but Honda is the main example, were able to get from those first initial problems that they solved, which was a small engine, light, low cost, but very powerful and also very sturdy for off-road type applications. Then they started moving up in that on that particular innovation stack until they even literally left the off-road to the road and now are competing in all the markets. So build an organization around learning. What does that mean for Tesla? Now, Tesla, it doesn't fit perfectly into this innovator's dilemma themes because Tesla, for once, has had to build a very large resource base. So Tesla had to go, even before they had anything to show, other than maybe the Model S and a little bit of success in a very, very small scale, but they already had to commit massive resources for the Gigafactory and things like that. So in that sense, Tesla doesn't fit exactly the small size organization fit to learn type argument. But I think that's fine because what Tesla is doing is a lot more along the lines of 0 to 1, which is, build something unique, build something that is monopolistic, that nobody else is doing, and then hopefully the customers will flock to you. Hopefully you will build something that the customers don't even know that they need. This is the fundamental thesis that Tesla is pursuing, and so far very successfully. So what Tesla did is they created a new market, and we've discussed this before, created a disruptive market, which was basically an engine with very low cost of ownership, incredible performance, but they did not have the range, and they didn't have the manufacturing capabilities to build these things at scale. The range is solved by now, so we've innovated ourselves. The innovation stack around the range was built through better battery technology and better charging capacity, and also more charging superchargers around the country. So that problem, I would say, has been solved. The manufacturing problem is being solved as we speak. And this is kind of like a little bit against the innovator's dilemma thesis, because the manufacturing problem on its own as part of the innovation stack is of course requiring a company to go big, because that's how you solve the manufacturing problem. You start manufacturing at scale, and you start manufacturing at scale while lowering the cost. But the one thing that Tesla is doing, and this is the key point that I want to drive through in this particular episode, is Tesla is adjusting the cost curve down. Tesla is moving the cost curve down. So they're not starting with a low cost curve. They're moving the cost curve down relentlessly to answer, number one, to answer any kind of disruptive threat which could come from, let's say, Chinese competition. B, to enable themselves more applications around their innovation stack. The lower the cost, the more things they can do and try. So for example, by lowering the cost, they can build an off-road vehicle, the Cybertruck, which has enormous performance matrices, has many more advantages than a regular truck, and is very affordable. So that way, you're hitting a couple of points, and you have this ability to then grow with the customer. And hopefully, and it's almost certain that with the right price point and the right performance matrix, the Cybertruck will be a bestseller. And then people will start using the Cybertruck for all kinds of things that we can't even think about today. This is, of course, it could come across a little bit like wishful thinking, from a Tesla shareholder. But if you just think through it logically, you have a low cost base, a car that has enormous performance matrices, that also has the ability to do things that regular cars can't do, regular pickup trucks. For example, go off-road, have enormous torque, and also have energy available through the sun. This is something that nobody else has. You cannot have energy through the sun integrated into the car. And I think that this is one of the applications. It is considered a toy right now to have the solar panel on the truck. I am predicting that a couple of years down the road, this will be one of the key advantages of the Cybertruck. Next to all I'm not saying it's the one thing that will sell the Cybertruck, but I think it's going to open a new market. Camping, plumbers, gardeners, landscape workers, all these types of people who have to use tools, energy, and compressors and tools, and again, like things that they need to work, or campers, which need to use tools also. They will love this product. And because it's integrated in the car, of course, you can have solar panels now next to a gas-driven truck, but I think this will be one of those applications where we will start seeing a new market emerge. Let's call it an intelligent off-road electric vehicle market for applications such as work and leisure outside of your home. So something like that, or outside of your factory, or outside of your home base as a business. So again, Tesla is not fitting perfectly into the innovator's dilemma, but that's fine. I'm happy it doesn't, because I think at this point, 30 years after the book came out, we should see new applications, new types of businesses, new types of behaviors, and that's exactly what we're seeing. And the parallels are, in a sense, that we have an organization which is built around learning, and built around learning means that you are building an innovation stack. You're building an innovation stack from the first problem onwards, and you're building the innovation stack by solving that problem, creating new problems, solving that problem. So you're innovating yourself through the disruptive technology into new markets, and you're letting those markets grow. You're letting those markets flourish. You're not marketing, constraining yourself to certain outcomes that might or might not happen. You are much more flexible and open for outcomes that might or might not happen. And then you quickly adapt your base, your volume base, your innovation stack, your production technology to those markets that you actually end up having an outcome. So one example with Tesla, a beautiful example, is the Tesla Autopilot, which for many is, oh, it's a failure because we don't have self-driving and all that. Tesla Autopilot is an enormous success because, for example, what Tesla Autopilot does is it allows people to keep the lane. So people prefer to go on highways and places like that, even when they're stacked with rush hour traffic, because it's a much more convenient experience with the autopilot. And interestingly enough, actually, the autopilot is not very good for things like off-road or very curvy roads. We are right now, as we speak, we are in Monterey Carmel. We're doing the 17-mile drive. It's very difficult to use the Tesla Autopilot on that particular road. So the kinds of roads that traditionally were sort of the roads where real drivers drive with a stick shift and you really have the driving experience, those are not very good for the Tesla Autopilot. And actually it makes a lot of sense, because those are the kinds of roads where people really have to use driving skills, and that's why it's fun to drive. But all the other roads, and that's, I would say, 95% of the driving that we do is, the kind of rush hour stuff, highways, big roads, and that's where lane keeping is key. And the Tesla Autopilot is very good at lane keeping, and it's changing the behavior of people, and it's creating a new market where I am already seeing, hearing anecdotally, and I'm pretty sure if you did a thorough analysis, you would find out that, let's say, a lot of elderly people prefer the Tesla and to use it to go, let's say, shopping on very busy roads, because they can use the autopilot to then do the bumper to bumper, and they don't have to concentrate all the time. So to switch now to Twist Bioscience, we've discussed a few episodes before how Twist Bioscience is a disruptive company in certain areas of the business and is also not disruptive in other areas. Now let's use this analysis of chapter 7 to the Twist Bioscience disruptive part of the business, which we identified as being the biopharma business and the DNA storage business. So DNA storage is a perfect example where you have to build an organization around learning. The company has to learn with the market how these things can be used. For example, we thought that certain, let's say, highly sensitive, very secretive type CIA, FBI type data that has to be very small, concise, not corruptible, not hackable. Those are certain applications that we see could be used on the DNA storage side. Certainly not your mass market. I don't think the DRAM storage business, the Intels and the Microns and all these companies, the Hisense, they don't need to be worried right now, but they should think about this disruption as it's coming through their market. On the biopharma side, the Twist Bioscience business is basically the way we described it is at scale engineering style antibody discovery platform for diseases. So they're finding, by using analytics algorithms and their actual ability to synthesize synthetic molecules, DNA in particular, but also other types of molecules, RNA and things like that, mRNA. They are using, they're basically building a supply chain which can analytically, algorithmically, and through an engineering approach start building a discovery platform for antibodies to solve diseases at scale and much faster, with much faster turnaround. Again, this is a new market. That's not how pharmaceuticals work right now. And it might be used, for example, in COVID-19, because that's a very pressing situation. There's lots of money and lots of energy being devoted to that. We believe that this is a massive, massive opportunity for Twist Bioscience, and therefore we're very excited about that. So to summarize, Chapter 7 of the Innovator's Dilemma is answering the question, how should we organize ourselves around an innovative, new, disruptive technology when we don't know what the market is actually going to be like? And the answer is build an organization around learning, or to use Jim McKelvey's words, build an innovation stack, start small, this is from Chapter 6, and then build, grow with it, and also have a learning approach. So, for example, what that means is in the organizational structure, in the culture, the failure has to be part of the culture, because by definition you will fail, you will make mistakes, you will not be right many times, and that has to be in one way or the other compensated. People have to, of course, like Reed Hastings says, culture is what gets you fired or promoted. So you have to make sure that you get promoted or fired if you don't follow that kind of matrix, which is learn, organize yourself by learning, grow with the technology, grow with the learnings from the technology. Those are challenges. It's not easy. That's why not everybody's doing it. That's why it's so hard for incumbents to adapt. But this is the answer, and this is being executed by companies like Tesla and Twist. In our portfolio, like I mentioned, unfortunately, we didn't have time to discuss Snowflake or Palantir, but those are also, they have aspects of that disruption that we're talking about. Thank you.